Explain in detail the heresy of Jehovah's Witnesses about Christ's second advent and recite and reference the verse that they misinterpreted to get this belief. B. How did Jehovah's Witnesses determine the exact calculation of Christ's second advent? Please explain in detail and give references where needed. And C. When Jehovah's Witnesses were wrong about the exact date of Christ's second advent, they became embarrassed and covered their heresy with another heresy. Please state the other heresy used to cover up the first one.
And St. Mark DC, Team B. A. Give two verses that make clear that through him all things were made. References are not required. B. Explain in detail what His Holiness means when he says, God through him all things are made. Give verses and references where needed. His Holiness Pope Shenouda III asks a question, Is it reasonable then to ask who is the Creator, the Father, or the Son? Explain what we say about this and give an analogy that His Holiness Pope Shenouda III uses to explain this.
Part A, where it says explain in the detail the heresy Jehovah's Witnesses about Christ's second advent and recite the reference, the verse they misinterpreted to get this belief. They said that he will come invisibly, and that the verse they misinterpreted is in Revelation when they say that he will come to his chosen people. Part B, it says, how did Jehovah's Witnesses determine the exact calculation of Christ's second advent? In Revelation it said, in 1,000 days, a day is 1,000 years, and a year is 1,000 days. They calculated it, and they said it was 1914. Part C says when Jehovah's Witnesses were wrong about the exact date of Christ's advent. The year was 1914, and it says that instead and they covered up their heresy by saying he will come invisibly.
The two verses that I chose were through him, for all things through him are made, were in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And in the beginning, God made everything. The Pope, what he meant by God, like when he says God through him made all things, him he means by Christ, and he says that that God put, like Christ had everything under his feet, and he was in control of the earth. And for Creator, it's both the Father and the Son, because they're both one in the Trinity.
Question 2, we're going to start with Church B. There are two main celebrations of St. Mark on the 30th of Barmoda and the 30th of Baba. State the significance of each. Describe in detail the liturgical readings on the 30th of Barmoda. Provide biblical references where acceptable.
Church A. There's hardly any prayer in the church that doesn't mention St. Mark's name, glorifying him or requesting his intercession and asking for blessing. There are prayers in the liturgy, the Agbeya book, and the praises that commemorate him. Name and explain in detail the prayers in the liturgy that mention his name. Provide quotes from the liturgy.
The two main celebrations on the 30th of Barmoda, one of them were the Christian Egyptians were celebrating Easter, and the other Egyptians and the Greeks were celebrating the idol of Cerberus. And the liturgical readings on the 30th of Barmoda were the Synaxarium.
The first one is in St. Mark's doxology. One quote is saying, like, O Mark, the great apostle, like he brought to us the true light out of the darkness and nourished us with the bread of life. Another instance where St. Mark's name is mentioned in the liturgy is during the prayer of the intercessions, when we sing like the Hitanies, and we say through intercessions of St. Mark, the beholder of God and evangelist, the Lord forgive us our sins. The next one is Praxis response, Hail to you, a martyr, hail to you, the evangelist, the apostle, and the beholder of God. And the final one would be the commemoration of saints, again saying St. Mark, the great martyr, evangelist, and apostle. and beholder of God.
Okay, for Church A, in order, name the chain of virtues. Where does self-control fit in the chain of virtues? Provide 4 biblical references supporting any of the virtues as provided in the book.
For Church B, what are the 4 functions that constitute a human personality? Please match each of the 4 functions to the Gospels. What are 2 characteristics of all well-developed feeling functions? What is the first way of nourishing and developing the feeling function? Provide biblical references to support your answers.
In order, name the chain of virtues. Where does self-control fit in the chain of virtues? Provide 4 biblical references supporting any of the virtues as provided in the book. The chain of virtues in order is faith, which supports virtue, which supports knowledge, which supports self-control, which supports perseverance, which supports godliness, which supports brotherly kindness, which supports love. Self-control is one of the ones in the middle as number 4. For faith, the biblical reference is in Hebrews 11:1. For virtue and for knowledge, the biblical reference is in James 2:26. For perseverance, the biblical reference is in Mark 13:13, and for godliness, the biblical reference is in Wisdom 8:7.
What are the 4 functions that constitute a human personality? Please match each of the 4 functions to the Gospel. The Gospel of Matthew reflects the thinking function. The Gospel of Mark demonstrates the sensing function. The Gospel of Luke reflects the feeling function. The Gospel of John reflects the intuition function. What are 2 characteristics of well-developed feeling function? It's loyalty and doing God's will. What is the first way of nourishing and developing the feeling function? The first one is remembering it. The second one is repeating it.
The final scores are St. Mark Westside, 28 points, and St. Mark DC, 18 points.